Hey everybody, John here. This is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing, September 6th. We're now done with meteorological summer, heading into fall. Let's get started with today's weather briefing. Well, from climatological standpoint, September can be a sunny month, the least cloudy. In many areas, that darkest shade there, orange, is the 10th least cloudy month, so we can have prolonged stretches in September of fairly quiet weather. Now, last week we had quite a bit of action over the central U.S. We had high winds, we had thunderstorm winds, we had heavy downpours. We also had some high winds in the Great Lakes region, and we had a cluster of severe storms in the Ohio River Valley. Now, when we look at rainfall, you can see that we had 1 to 3 inches of rain. Parts of Nebraska and Kansas and Texas. We also had that other cluster of some heavy rain in the Ohio River Valley. But many areas that needed rain, including the western U.S., not much. Now, we did have a monsoonal flow here in the southwest. Now, this morning is starting off quite cool. We have a number of record or near record low temperatures. Those are those blue dots. And over the last week, areas in blue in that bottom right graphic drop down into the 40s, and areas in purple drop down into the 30s. So we have some really cool air at the current time. Now, temperatures last week, if you were in an area of green, you had temperatures about 5 degrees below normal for the week. Areas in blue, maybe 6 to 8 degrees below normal. Pacific Northwest experienced a heat wave last week. Now, in addition to the cooler weather, many areas have very dry air over the region. Dew points quite low, so really enjoy it if you're in the central part of the U.S., parts of the east. We have some really cool and dry, pleasant weather. Now, not a lot of flooding going on, but there is a concern for some low flows. These are all the low flow locations from this USGS graphic. And western U.S., pretty widespread low flows, but we're also beginning to see this on the lower Missouri and parts of the middle and lower Mississippi River drainages. This is Memphis, already minus 2.4 and going down to minus 6. So some low flows, and we might have some delays in river transportation due to those low flows. So the reason for the cool air was this big dip in the jet stream, low pressure. The reason for the unusually hot weather, this dome of high pressure. Now, by the middle of the week, we're going to change things up a bit. We're going to develop a ridge of high pressure over the central U.S. and bring a bit of cooler air with this low pressure in the west. So you can see that as we go through the next 5 days, the cool air is still lingering, so enjoy it while you can if you're in this region. We start to cool off in California with that upper low, but then by the second 5 days, look at this, the middle part of the U.S. is above normal. So we go from this blue to this red. You can see that right here, blue to that red. Now, as we get into the second half of September, it just looks like an overall warm pattern, especially in the western U.S., parts of the central U.S. Not much sign of that cool weather after about the 15th of September. Now, I'm going to give you an example how abrupt this is going to be in many spots. Des Moines high today, 68, and by Wednesday, 86. Tomorrow morning's low, 43, 61 as we get towards the middle of the week. Now, the tropics just don't look all that impressive. This time of year, you'd think I'd be talking a lot about that. There's a very puny looking system out there right now. It's just not doing much. The odds of development have lowered. I'll keep an eye on it this week, but I don't see any impact in the U.S. this week. Now, I'm most concerned about the lack of rain. Now, we have a couple types of drought here. We have the western U.S. where we have this persistent longer-term drought, and then we have the central U.S. and the northeast where we have this emerging drought. This is the last 4 weeks and how drought has emerged. So we need rain in any of these areas. Now, are we going to get rain? Not really, especially in this emerging drought area. Nothing at all this week. And in the west, maybe some scattered areas here and there. Where are we going to get the heavy rain this week? Generally the Florida Peninsula, maybe along the immediate coast, East Coast. And there is a chance for some severe storms in some populated areas of the Northeast where there could be some locally heavy downpours. I don't think the rain this week is going to do a whole lot to put a dent in that drought. Okay, take a look at week 2. Here you can see our temperatures and our rainfall. Still, I don't see any relief from the drought in the Midwest into the east. Looks very dry. So that drought is going to be expanding and intensifying. Okay, so let's take a look real quickly as I round out the briefing on the temperature classification for June, July, and August. And look at that. Remember a couple of weeks ago I put out about the central U.S. summer warming hole? You could see that again. We actually had temperatures near to below normal over the central U.S. And then as we get into rainfall, anything in green was above normal rainfall. And look at this. Remember all the fires that we've had in California and parts of the western U.S.? You can see how dry it was of a summer. I'm going to have some more detailed statistics on summer coming up in the next week or so. That's this week's briefing. Hope you have a great week. Take care.